my dry tone. So basically, what makes this setup special and why I've set out over the course of like 4+ months repairing machines and setting up the different signal chains and orders and seeing how things worked is I had one idea in my mind that I hadn't seen explored yet, and that was tape delay that was re-recorded for each delay. So this is very important if you are going to try and recreate or purchase a cassette deck in hopes of getting tape delay, is that cassette decks come in two different categories: 2-head and 3-head cassette decks. So I'm going to try and explain it on the piece of paper here. So if this cassette is for instance, loaded into a cassette player like this, right along the bottom is where all of the processing happens. So if we're pretending this is loaded into a cassette deck, 2-head cassette decks have an erase head to make sure that the tape is clean before it's recorded, and a playback head. On a 2-head cassette deck, they can still record because the playback doubles as the record head. They can't do two things at once, so that means it can only play or record at the same time. If we move the cassette down here, now we're in a 3-head cassette deck. Still has your erase head, one head, then it has a record head, and then right after it has a playback head. This means that whatever it's recording, it can play back right after. And the distance between the record head and the playback head is your delay time. You have probably seen machines, this is a top-down view now, tape delay machines, and they often look like this, where the tape comes around and it's kind of in a squiggle over here, but then it goes around here. How these work is there's an erase head, then there's a record head, and then there's 3 playback heads along the tape's route. So it records the tape, and then it plays back the one recording 3 different times. On these machines, you can pick which heads are activated, that kind of stuff. Why this machine that I've built is unique is because it records and re-records the repeat several times throughout the process. 4 times to be exact. So it erases, records, plays back. Then it comes down, it erases, so it just cleans the new tape. Then it records the already recorded delay line again, so more wow, more flutter. Then of course you get the picture until you have the 4th generation delay happening, where it's picked up all the extra wow and flutter from the previous tape decks, and it's in that sense tape delay, and it's kind of mimicking a bit of analog where it's degrading and picking up artifacts and saturation over time. So I hope that you can hear that, and it really has exceeded my expectations. So let's continue to listen. So basically how this is working is my dry signal is being split at the iridium. One signal is going in series through these 4 machines, and one signal is just going out to this little mixer on top, and the dry signal is being mixed with the delayed signal. Also, what makes this setup special, and this is very important if you're going to try and recreate this yourself, is that you have to monitor each cassette deck from its headphone out to be able to hear that cassette deck's delay contribution. So if you only monitored the last cassette deck in the chain, you would only get one delay repeat. But if you headphone monitor each cassette deck, you get each cassette deck's delay. So 4 machines equals 4 delays. And from here on out, I'm just going to show you the delay possibilities of this setup and why I'm so excited about it. So like I said, here's my clean tone. And with starting up the first machine, we'll hear our first delay line. So you can hear our first delay line, and it's basically a slapback delay. Just sounds like everything you would ever want out of a slapback delay. So as we're going through, I'm going to explain the machine too. So this is a PMD 221 by Marantz. These are cassette decks that were made to be mobile use for broadcasting, so doing interviews and that kind of stuff back in the day. And why this machine is really important and useful for this process is it has a speed control, so it does half speed and standard speed. Right now that machine is in half speed, which means you get more wow and flutter as well as more delay on the delay line. So that's really cool. And like I said, this is combined with the dry signal on the first channel, so it's going to stay on for the whole video. Also perfect for surf stuff. I have the Strymon Blue Sky set up. That's not being heard on the dry signal. The reverb is going through the tape decks. So I'll let you know when that's on, but here's kind of what that sounds like. Turn that up a bit. Gonna put that on spring for the surf sound. So it's not as pronounced because it's going through the tape decks, but I wanted to put it through the tape decks so that we weren't getting confused on what the tape decks were doing and what the Blue Sky was doing. So here's one last sustained note for the first cassette deck. And from here on out as well, I'm going to have the room up on the Iridium because I think it sounds really good, but it was muddying up that first delay line. So that's the new clean signal. Here's what that sounds like. So for the rest of the video, that first tape deck staying on. The second tape deck is the dual C830 at the bottom. And let's start that up. and we'll bring that in. So here's full mix with the dual C830. And we're already hearing the absolute beauty behind this setup is this delay line is already starting to sound so much more wobbly and lo-fi, and I love it. It just sounds so awesome. Now, as we go along, I'm going to shut off the delay tap before the one that I'm showing next. So let's turn the dual off. And you can immediately hear how much quieter it gets. The hiss and the noise and the saturation and the wow and flutter is all part of the process with these machines. So let's turn on the Fisher. This is a Fisher CR4029. And let's hear what this one sounds like. This one is such a surprise to me, and you're going to hear why right away. So with a machine in slow mode and then a machine in normal and then the Fisher in normal speed, it just comes out to about 100 BPM awesome dotted eighth tone, which I use all the time. Very edge-like. Here's a bit of reverb from the Blue Sky. The little bit of reverb again going into the tape deck gives the tape something to chew on in there, and it just sounds so amazing. Having it outside of the tape deck sounds phenomenal too. It's obviously the Blue Sky is very hi-fi, but again, it just gives it something to chew on in there. The last tape deck is the Marantz PMD 220, and that is the predecessor to the 221. It by far has the most wow and flutter. That's why it's last, because I didn't want it to muddy up the signal earlier in the chain. And it just sounds so phenomenal. Here's the Marantz PMD 222. And like I said about the 221, these were broadcasting machines, and this Marantz is also in half speed. Here's what it sounds like. Like, listen to how lo-fi that is. And I noticed that this is in like quarter notes as opposed to the last one in dotted eighth note at the BPM that I'm playing at. So this delay tap, again from the PMD 220, is the longest, the farthest away from the dry signal that this setup can get you. So this is what it sounds like. And, you know, some people do delay with tape decks in a different way, and I think this is going to become a bit of a series on my channel playing with this setup. So go ahead and share this to friends that you think might find this interesting, because I really want to grow the community of people who love playing around with cassette tapes on this YouTube channel. And again, like I said, I'm going to do some more videos on experimenting further with this setup. But for me, I mean, I don't think that I need to get farther away delay lines than this. Now, the limitation to this setup is that you can't control how many feedbacks you get. From each machine, you only get one delay line. I can't control the feedback. Now, there are ways to control the feedback, again, which I'm going to cover in another video, and I'm really excited for that prospect. But I just wanted to talk a little bit more about this setup, but I have one more delay combination, two more rather, that are so far my favorite. And that is the quarter note at about half and the dotted eighth note at full blast. And you get that perfect edge sound. Gonna use the blue sky as well. So that's a perfect edge. And now here is all taps at full blast with dry signal. Just listen to that hiss. And just lastly, let's just hear all three without the blue sky. So there is 4, but it's easiest to hear the 3. So what if we did 2 and 4? Well, basically 1, 2, and 4. So basically, turn these taps off just to get rid of the noise. Basically, I just wanted to touch on the downsides, more of the downsides before I end this video. Tape cassette decks are at the age where if they haven't been serviced, they are worn out. And even if they're not worn out from use, some of the plastic parts, things called belts, are too degraded to work. So they often need to be serviced. And 3 out of these 4 machines I serviced myself, and it was a painful process. I needed help from a professional to bring one of them back after I didn't know what I had done wrong. But that being said, these machines don't often cost an arm and a leg out there. But man, was it a frustrating process to bring these back to working order to make sure they weren't quitting while I was playing or anything like that. So right now, these 4 machines are running really well, serviced and all that fun stuff. But past the servicing part, and through that, I was going to show a bit of a montage of me frustratingly tearing these machines apart. But after that, I had these basically sprawled out on my desk, trying to figure out how to gain stage, how to connect them together, how to make sure that this setup even worked, because the first time I connected them all together, I just got basically oscillation. Interesting, cool, but not what I was going for. So it took me a long time to figure out that the PMD machines didn't want to be next to each other, and certain things about the gain staging of having the machines in certain orders didn't work right away, and I couldn't get to work properly. So this order and setup is a long time coming, and creating one of these is not for the faint of heart. However, it was so fun and enjoyable to learn about these machines and get to know how they worked, and start getting interested even from the collector's side. These PMD machines are really special. And the last part that isn't a downside is that each machine that you buy, you can get started with right away. So this is what it sounds like if you had one machine. A perfect slapback. And you can get going with that right away until on Marketplace you find another machine and you can add your second sound in. This is a really good solo it's a good kind of solo tone. And like as we were saying, once you get your third machine, this is what it sounds like. Once you get your fourth machine, this is what it sounds like. And then after you have 4 machines, you can take away your third machine, which is still valuable because it's adding the delay and degradation, but you can get your dotted 8. So more videos to come specifically on how to get more feedbacks on the delay. I'm going to use this setup as a delay kind of creative loop station. And I want to try and create reverb using these 4 machines as well. So like I said, if you know somebody that would love to kind of see the creative side of cassettes and all that kind of stuff, please share this video to them so we can grow the community of cassette fans. And just lastly, this machine is called the Z28 Cascade. And I think that name just perfectly fit this machine. And I'm talking about this machine as one unit, even though it's 4 separate units. And if you wanted to get a 5th, 6th, 7th machine, maybe it'll work. Maybe it will just get too degraded to hear the repeats properly, all that fun stuff. But that's the beauty of the experimentation side of cassettes. As well, I think it's interesting to note that basically these work like reel-to-reel machines, except the cassettes are so much easier to use, and if one cassette breaks or you don't like the sound of it, it's so simple to switch them out, and I love that side of it. And I don't know why cassette players with 3 heads aren't getting the love and hype that reel-to-reel machines are getting, because I could plug my laptop into this and record, you know, as many tracks as I wanted onto these cassettes, and it would just sound amazing. And each cassette deck has a different vibe that you have access to, and again, I'm super stoked to have this set up and more videos to come on it. Let me know if you think I'm missing anything or something that I could try or something that might help me excel more at these experiments. And sorry, I know I said last thing a couple of times, but one cool thing about cassette decks is that I didn't have to modify the machines at all to do this. And that's really important to me because I love experimenting, but I'm not a huge fan of modifying things myself. Some little modifications, but it's way beyond my depth to go into these machines and modify them. However, I didn't have to modify them. I modified their use. They're not meant to go into one deck after the next, but I didn't modify how the machines work, and that really worked with my workflow. So again, I'm stoked. Stay tuned for more on this setup, and let me know your thoughts in the comments. Catch you in the next video.